Greetings, welcome. Please give me a moment to load my Blog Talk Radio platform as well as my YouTube Live. I certainly do appreciate your participation, your support, your love, your understanding. All is indeed a blessing. I will be forward momentarily. I'm not hearing my theme music, which means I'm having an audio problem. And I got a Walmart delivery at my door. Be patient, please. One moment, uno momento. I will be forward momentarily. I'm also going to have to reset my Blog Talk Radio. So if you're attempting to sign into the Blog Talk Radio, give me a moment to reset it. It's not acting right. All is a blessings. Greetings, greetings. Just give me a moment, you guys. I had to answer the mailman at the door. Of course, I'm having technical issues. It's always weather. It's always a test. I tried to use my Skype to sign in before the show, and it wouldn't allow me. But it seems to be cooperating now. So just give me a moment to get things going again. All is a blessing. Greetings, greetings. This Friday, April 3rd, 2020. Just give me a second to get things set up again. And I will move forward.
Back into a live show. We are reconnecting you now.
Remember, you can call me at 845-277-9143. 845-277-9143. Do press the number 1 on your telephone keypad. This will alert me that there is a caller in queue, and I will unmute your mic and bring you into this powerful conversation. All is indeed a blessing. Hoodoo occultism, hoodoo occultism. We going there today, bruh. We're going to talk about white supremacy today. We're going to talk about racism today. We're going to talk about entitlement today. We're going to talk about prejudice and bias today. But as always, we're going to do it in a unique and new way, and of course from the platform of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. Come on in, join me, come on in. Greetings, beloved. Greetings, Kiona, Seven the Gentleman, Julia Rose. Welcome, beloved. Welcome. Keisha Smith. And, of course, Kathy Austin. Thank you so much for being present here at high noon U.S. Central Standard Time for another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. All is a blessing. I see people running. Do you fear a conversation about racism? Do you fear a conversation about white supremacy? Do you fear this conversation? Don't run now. Don't run now. Hoodoo occultism. This is your day. We're going there today. Da da da. Da da da. Thank you, Arisha. Thank you kindly. Divine, all blessed, peace and love. I had to unmute my Skype for my Blog Talk Radio. Divine, all blessed, Peace and love, joy and prosperity, revelations and manifestation. You are now listening live to the Divine Prince, Pan-African spiritualist, practitioner, author, and advisor, Elagun Oloye Hoodoo Obeya Bokur, sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan-African hoodoo, world spiritualist perspective, understanding that all is truly and indeed a blessing if you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all just an illusion and a test in one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. This is my constant prayer, my mantra, affirmation, reverberation, reiteration, and it is my personal ever living reality. All as a blessing is crucial to the very foundation of my understanding, my personal being, my personal walk, works, and demonstration along this divine, all blessed life path and journey. It is how I, the Divine Prince, make sense out of all that we are challenged with here in our daily existence on Mother, Father, Earth, and it is my personal place of power and understanding. The place from where I begin, the place from where I realize and crystallize all my endeavors, understanding that I and I alone create and co-create my divine destiny, and I alone create and co-create my divine all-blessed reality. And so it is. Ashe. Asheo. Ashe. Today is Friday, April 3rd, 2020, and I am emanating and vibrating with you and for you live, virtually, verbally, cosmically, quantum universally from this working temple of the House of the Divine Prince, Thai Potions, and Hoodoo Central LLC. All is truly indeed a blessing in this beautiful, legendary, most enchanted city in America, New Orleans, Louisiana, the land of my ancestors and those who came before me along this hoodoo, voodoo, obeya life path and journey, passing down the great obeah stick along with the knowledge of the life-giving, healing, plants, herbs, rituals, spirits, and minerals. I'm always humbled, honored, appreciative by those who do choose to join me here at high noon U.S. Central Standard Time. In the middle of your day, whatever time of day it is where you are at this very moment, I most certainly do appreciate your active participation in the conversation. You can call me now at area code 347-215-8967. Again, you can call me now, but you can always call me 15 minutes from the 15 minute of the hour to noon. You can all start calling in. Before the noon hour, when I call in at 11:45, I often play music. So you can listen to my voodoo music going into the show. And of course, those who stayed on the phone lines past 150 have heard me play music and meditative music after the show as well. But you can call in now. This is your live mic. This is your opportunity to voice your truth at area code 347-215-8967. I think I just read my old number. No, my number is area code 845-277-9143. Area code 845-277-9143. I'm going to come to the phone lines momentarily. Area code 305, hand is raised. Area code 347, hand is raised. And I most certainly do appreciate you and your active participation in the show. I do want to set a little bit of a foundation before we move forward in terms of subject matter, energy, vibration of the day. And of course, we always start by acknowledging the mighty shoulders of which we stand upon, our great ancestors. For without them, we would not have our very being, not just our being, capital B, capital E, hyphen, lowercase ing, but our being, our physical being, our humanity, if you will. And I want to talk a little bit today about humanity in relation to racism, white supremacy, prejudice. And let me be clear, it's not going to be like you've heard it before. It's not going to come from the same megaphone that you've heard it shouted from before. I want to talk about that which we overlook, that which we deny, that which we don't see, that which has gone underground. And indeed, we don't live in a day of active cross burnings and hangings and lynchings. But indeed, we live in a day of subtle white supremacy. And my mama used to say, if looks could kill, if looks could kill. So you might not be called nigga to your face. You might not be insulted directly out in plain English. But white supremacy and racism and entitlement and prejudice and bias, which crosses all ethnic groups, by the way. I'm not a proponent of black people can't be racist. I'm not a proponent of that. Racism is a power that extends beyond humanity itself. It's a jinn. It's a demon. It's an energy attachment for which we are programmed to, for which attaches to us by way of exposure. Sometimes it comes through your environment, your parenting, your neighborhood, the conversation held at the Thanksgiving Day table, the Christmas Day table, within the confines of your community. But we also get it from the media. We get it from our music. We get it from our news publications and our popularized magazines and from our movies. It is a subtle intra-dimensional presence that sometimes, even when you're not racist or I'm not racist or you're not seeking to be prejudiced or I'm not seeking to be prejudiced, it's in the air. It's in the environment, much like a bacterium, much like a virus. And so it's something that we must be consciously aware of. So before I open my phone lines, I want to say first, Hoodoo occultism, again, responding to your question, first, to combat white supremacy, to combat racism, to combat prejudice, first we got to look at yourself. Always, always, you have to stand at the crossroads, in the center of the crossroads, and look at yourself. Be sure that when you say you're not in it, you're not of it. Be sure that when you say you're here to stamp out racism, you're here to block and eliminate white supremacy and oppression, be sure that it's not being birthed in you. Be sure that it's not being born, created, and recreated in you. Listen, it's touched everybody. It's a virus that has touched everyone. So if you have not chosen to block the virus, remove the virus, heal the virus, attend to your demonstration within that virus, it lives on. It lives on for another day. Let me go to my phone lines. Area code 347. Your mic is now open. Please mute your YouTube live so that we don't get your background noise. And tell us who you are and where you're calling from.
Okay. Hello, how are you?
All is a blessing.
My name is DivinePrince, and I'm calling you from New York City.
Yes, beloved. How can I help?
Well, I've been listening to you for a few days now, and I feel very, very connected to you. And I need a little bit of enlightenment, and I need a little bit of guidance, because right now, or for the past, I'll just say, my entire life has been, from birth to now, has been all over the place in terms of life experiences, spiritual experiences. The whole 30 years I've been alive has just been in shambles. It's just been all over the place. And I'm finally sitting here, and every time I go through an obstacle, something in my life, I would be called to a different spiritual path in terms of the one I was raised in. I was raised in a Hindu background, and then I started being called into the ancestral African background. And now I'm just trying to figure out where I stand and what should I do from here on moving forward, because I do meditate and chant a lot, and I've been chanting in all the spiritual backgrounds lately, and I just need a little bit of guidance.
I appreciate you calling in, absolutely. And where are you calling from?
New York City.
New York City. Grateful. Grateful that you took the time out to call in and participate in the show. The question that you have is a common one. It's one that we often address almost daily on the show. So to some of my regular listeners, my long-term listeners, it sort of sounds like I'm repeating myself. To the new listener, I say it with clarity. Again, first you got to look at self. First, get clear about yourself. Get clear about your identity. Get clear about who you are. Get clear about what you're standing up in. Your truth. Be sure you're standing in your truth. I also strongly suggest that you further investigate your DNA, your lineage, your family background. One part doesn't override the other part. Though we sort of act that way in the West, particularly when we speak in terms of race, racism, ethnicity, we sort of blur that all together and we say black and white, particularly in the U.S. And in that conversation, we neglect other ethnic groups and other ethnic presences that also make up, this unified mess that we call America. Um, Even when we extend out to other continents, we see a generalized focus on the main group, the group that holds the power. So don't neglect your Hindu ethnicity, if indeed you have a Hindu ethnic background, while at the same time acknowledging that which is African. Many don't realize that the largest body of African people, the largest population of African people outside the continent of Africa are actually in India. And we do see Hindu symbolism now being painted and portrayed and demonstrated on actual voodoo temple space in Benin, Togo, in many areas of West Africa. So there's a unified ancestral link there. They don't necessarily conflict with each other. They don't challenge each other. But we get clear about our understanding about various aspects of ourselves. We all are many people. We all can be good, we can be bad, we can be positive, we can be negative. We're all many people. So get clear about you. Examine all aspects of you. And so feed all that you are. I acknowledge that which is Asiatic about me. I acknowledge that which is Afrocentric about me. I acknowledge that which is indigenous about me. And it is indeed a part of your spirit walk and getting clarity, if you will, about who you are. Find those obituaries, ask for them. You don't necessarily have to tell your family that you're setting up a shrine or an altar necessarily for your ancestors. But ask for them, be available to them. Sometimes, people don't go to the funerals or they don't go to the repast. But ask your mom or your family members to bring you back an obituary. Uh, Gain access to pictures. Connect to the older people in your family who have access to these sources, and then bring them into a part of your getting clear about who you are. And that's part of what I do in my ancestral work in divination, to help people to incorporate that knowledge, that information into their spirit walk, into their spirit practice. Area code 305. Who's calling and where are you calling from? Your mic is open.
This is Andrea from Miami.
Yes, beloved. Speak up for me. What's going on?
Andrea from Miami. I have a question. I had an issue at work yesterday, and it was with my supervisor, and I wanted to know, like the vibe, like how can I protect myself at work because I was laying a Fatima hand, and recently it just broke on me, and I felt like that was something that was giving me protection at work. So when it broke, I felt like a lot of things went left for me. Is there anything else, being that everything is like closed right now, that I could possibly do for protection at work from all the evilness that comes against me?
First, you need to be prepared to move forward. You're getting a series of signs, a series of warnings, a series of alerts about you taking more seriously your destiny, your personal life destiny,
Uh-huh.
and then how you live, how you earn your income, your career path. Um, your time is limited there. You're there for a season. And I don't know the exact
Mm.
number of days or number of months or number of years, but there's a transition that you're being pushed towards that you must take leadership over, um, that carries you forward into the future. Now, right now, in terms of moving and mobility and that kind of thing, I've had to say before here on air as well as in my readings that I've had to greatly adjust my timelines because no one knows what's happening right now to any great degree.
Mhm.
It's sort of segmented by location, caller in New York. And of course, I'm in New Orleans, and of course, we have audience members in other locations. But we really aren't clear yet about 30 days, 60 days, 90 days out in terms of real world physical movement for sure. But there's a literal, I'm sorry, real world literal movement, but there's a figurative movement that's on the table as it relates to your career. And you're being pushed to evolve. You're being pushed to grow. You're being pushed to not get comfortable where you are. And there's star quality there. So this push from destiny is it's not just to make you uncomfortable, but it's really to take you to a greater
Mhm.
level, a greater plateau, if you will, as it relates to your career, your education, how you earn your living, and then of course personal life path choices are also attached to that. And for those listening, when I say personal life path choice, often what you do, how much money you make, really affects your life. The hourly wage job, particularly at the lower end of the spectrum, it might be feel limited, might feel boxed in, might feel caged, or might feel like they have to live on a budget, they have to pinch pennies, they have to live within their means, this sort of thing. And then the person who might be doing what they love, but also making a great deal more income, more resources to sort of fuel that, is going to feel a great deal differently about how they live, how they spend, how they plan for the future. Some of you already had a closet full of toilet paper. Some of you already had, cabinets full of food because you prepared for life, or you prepared for the next hurricane season, or you prepared for the next tornado season. But when we're talking really about spirit elevation, which, beloved, does include job and career, because often when we do work, any kind of ebo, make any kind of sacrifice, perform any kind of ritual, often it is going to show up in career, education, how you earn your living, and then personal life path choices first. So God, destiny, the goddess, however you view the creators, the divine creators, the ultimate ones who are in charge, they rule, write, and motivate destiny. And so destiny is what's happening right here. It's not about your personal comfort zone, other than they want to bruise your personal comfort zone enough to get you to move around, to get you to make another decision. to get you to make another move. And there's great value attached to it, both literally and figuratively. Carnally, money, your stuff, your credit, your housing, but at a deeper level, class, status, lifestyle, family value. So be open to the buffering, beloved. Be open to the push. And if you're not clear about it, do your homework, do some research, use your imagination. Back in the day when I was in my past life, when I punched the clock, left my house to work, did something outside of ministry, I never took a job without the idea that the day is going to come that I'm going to quit, be fired, or this place is going to close down, or I'm going to have to make that transition. What do I do? Where do I go? So I was always looking at the next location, the next employer, the next city, the next hot spot, if you will, for opportunity. And this resonates that for me. It resonates that. And callers, you don't have to hang up. Just mute your cells so that I don't get your background noise. And then I'll always come back to you again at some later point in the conversation if you have other questions and or comments. Area code 323, I believe that's Kiona, beloved. Greetings.
Greetings, Leah.
How I'm doing great. I really am. All is a blessing. And yourself?
I wanted to chime in on the topic on white supremacy. A lot of people are running frantic regarding the idea of a recession and the virus. This virus is horrible because over 53,000 people have passed on, and we understand that. However, this virus is leveling the playing field. It is letting everyone, including the people with these millions and billions of dollars, be at eye level with the rest of humanity. So it's going to be a lot of suicide. There's going to be a lot of confusion. There's going to be a lot of pushback because of recession. All that means is everything is cheaper. Everything is cheaper.
Or losing its value.
It means that they cannot charge you a high cost.
It's losing its
So
value.
it levels the playing field to where the person who needs to get ahead can get ahead. The person that may need to move can move because they've had to lower the rent to record-breaking levels. So that's all that means is that the capitalism is at eye level with the regular working class people. So instead of people who are already struggling, who were never being paid enough to be their neighbor to their employer, don't sit back and relax. Figure out what you need to do to start your business. Figure out your calling. Get with the DivinePrince. See what Spirit is saying about your destiny. Get on the right path to where once everything comes back up and that seesaw is no longer balanced, then you are at the higher end of it. That you're able to not struggle. That you're able to lead for generations. And that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree. And I appreciate you for sort of bringing us back into line, into focus. This time, this season, this weather we are in, this is a spiritual move. Now, you can call it a virus. Absolutely. I'm not trying to use deceptive language. I'm not trying to use tricky language. But this is a spiritual move. Me and my sister wife, Tony, Val Martinez, some of you know her from Facebook, we talk about this almost every day. God has life, has society on a timeout. And like Kiona said, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you live in the suburbs, whether you live in the country, the rural area, the city, God has us, nature has us on a spiritual timeout. And no one can box with Mother Nature, no one. Mother Nature is almost, if not just as powerful as her creator, which is God. God created Mother Nature. But Mother Nature is going to have her way. Mother Nature is going to bring rebalance, renewal, refreshment to herself by any means necessary. And we've gotten too many cues damaging the water, damaging the air, oil spills in the last 20 years, wars, rumors of wars in the last 20 years. I mean, we've really experienced some intense moments in the last 20, 30, 40 years. So Mother Nature is standing up now with clarity. She's telling us all to have a seat, to have several seats, and to look at and address who we are, what we are, how we're living. I heard you sort of reference, beloved, the stress of it all. And we predicted that in shows leading up to today's show, that, the news is just breaking. The news is just settling in. Some of you all are just getting it. Some of you don't watch TV, don't watch the news, claim you don't read newspapers, claim you don't interact a whole lot in social media, and you don't hear stuff. I get a cousin like that. She swears she don't know nothing that's ever going on ever at any time. You will not be able to be in denial now moving forward. If the reality hasn't set in for you yet, it's just a matter of hours. It's just a matter of days. This is starting to hit home. Even in my own family, in-laws, this part of the extended family, that part of the extended family, locals, celebrities, well-renowned musicians like Ellis Marcellus and many others. This is now beginning to settle in a very real way. And when your system, your government, your president says this is going to be a tough 2 weeks, this is going to be a tough 2 weeks, by which I don't, trust much of what he says anyway. I typically think the worst or the opposite of what he affirms in public when he stands up to that mic. So that means it's either going to be worse than we're being told, or it's not going to happen at all. And we know it's the possibility of it not happening is too late. We are already in this, up to our neck. People are walking around with this and don't know they have it, are not experiencing any symptoms. People are carrying this and not experiencing any symptoms for 14 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So the notion of people being under pressure, being stressed, getting bored with staying at home, with staying in place, people's real constitution is now visible, not just for us to see, but for yourself to see. If you choose to see yourself, I often use athletes and military personnel as an example of how we can choose to take challenge, pain, and use it to our best interest. The athlete pushes themselves to a particular limit by choice in order to develop, mature, grow to the next level. In the military, it's a similar thing where they sort of break you down from your whole individual way of looking at things so that you can learn the system and how to be a part of that mechanism. But then there's this whole thing that happens in social media, in the real world, in your neighborhoods, in your schools, in your churches, where it's all just so subtle now. Thank God this isn't 1950. Thank the Most High this isn't 1932. We are indeed living in an advanced time, a new time. But don't be in denial. The issues, the problems, the complications are just beneath the surface. And it often takes times like this to bring that up, for that black obsidian to work that truth to the surface so that it can be addressed, so that light can be shined on it. We've been advised, it's been advised, suggested that, we take this time to be active in social media, to try new things, to look into new resources, with our newfound downtime, for lack of better words. And one of the sites that I've actually been on for quite some time, many of you are familiar with it. I've invited many of you to participate in it. I can remember a time when you looked over the fence, when you communicated over the fence, you gossiped over the fence with your neighbors about what was going on in the community, what was happening, what the latest news was, who was the most recent, person or family, to have their house or their property, violated, and families and husbands and housewives, communicated that across the fence. And today it's being done on this little site called Nextdoor. 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 And I've been on Nextdoor for a few years. I don't participate a lot on Nextdoor. I don't comment a lot on Nextdoor. I'm even learning not to click the like button or the thumbs up button, or the +1 button, which is like a vote for the comment, in that site, because I'm realizing it's a hotbed of white supremacy, racism, prejudice, entitlement, and just general overall bitching and complaining and moaning about the next sex or the next ethnic group or the next race or the next person that is seen or identified as a problem. And let me be clear, I don't post a lot on this site at all, if ever really. I'm more apt to click like to someone's comment or click like to a post. And I first noticed that, much like in Facebook, you can kind of see who's liking, who clicked the heart. Right now, at the top of my head, I'm not even sure if that's visible in Nextdoor in quite that way. But I began to notice that I would click like on things, participate in things. Hey, Wapani, and people would block me. Now, I do that in Facebook, when you step into a volatile conversation and people have really fallen off the rails, and they're insulting each other and they're going there. And so people's real constitution, whether it be racism or prejudices or biases, are just out there. There's this sense of anonymity that people have online, and particularly in groups like Nextdoor. And I went on to do a little homework, to do a little research, and found out that Nextdoor has sort of a reputation for this. This is not a new thing for Nextdoor to be a site that sort of harbors, to some degree promotes, and gives people sort of a feeling that they can throw rocks and hide their hand, that they can assault and attack. Today was the first time that I personally have ever been assaulted on the site. And let me tell you what it was about. So people are often on there posting the lost cat, the lost dog. They don't like the gutter punks. They don't like to see groups of black youth congregating or walking through or biking through. And so often you get those kind of posts, black male, 5'10", walking through the neighborhood, that kind of thing. And sometimes it gets a little more overt in terms of people's feelings and ideas. But what's behind the scenes is, the communication is going on, but then when I comment or a black person comments, no matter how positive the comment, there are no likes. There's no support of that comment. There's no interaction. So today, I don't know, today I get up, I'm getting my alerts in my phone and on my desktop about Nextdoor, and it's an ongoing post about possum. Someone has a possum in her building. I believe she's a landlord. It's in a building or a house. I'm not sure which. And she was trying to get rid of it or remove it. My response was, and this is what I'm about to say is true. My response was, well, we've been discussing how to catch a possum and eat and cook one, particularly in the events that are going on today. Oh my God, what did I say that for? Let me tell you, for the first time, I'm getting responded to. For the first time, people are clicking like and thumb up and thumb down and have some kind of response to my humanity. Okay, but it ain't to my humanity. It's to the life of the possum. And so now the originator of the post claims she's been getting threatening, messages from PETA and other animal rights groups, which I find interesting. If it is true, no one has sent me any. PETA ain't threatened me. No one has responded in that way to what I said, which was if it comes down to that, if we get desperate enough, you absolutely will be eating possum. You'll be eating possum, you'll be eating coon, you'll be eating pigeon, you'll be eating duck, you'll be eating dove, you'll be eating squirrel. Okay, one more delivery, y'all. Now, I understand nobody wants to think like that. No one wants to fear that. No one wants to even allow their imagination to go as far, thank you, as far as to even consider that something like that might take place. But the reality is that it can and it will. And if we don't pay attention, and if some of you all don't learn to stay home, many are still acting like nothing's happening, like this isn't a big deal, like this is a tornado or a storm that blows over, in 24 hours, 48 hours, at the worst 78 hours. But if you haven't figured out yet, this is real. Y'all know I gotta bleach my hands. This is real. This has gotten real. And there just might come a time when there won't be no delivery. There just might come a time when there won't be no Walmart. There just might come a time when there won't be Amazon for all this convenience and luxury that we in the West have grown accustomed to. And so a few days ago, we talked about what was coming. And I said, people will get bored. I'm going to respond to you, Wapani. Give me a second. People will get bored. People will run out of things to do. People will run out of ideals and things to focus on. And their real constitution is going to come to the surface. And racism today, because we have mixed marriages, we have biracial children. I have them within my own family. So we have sort of this look of diversity. We sort of have this look of, we're all sort of coming together. But I know even from within the mixed marriages within my family, they're very sensitive to and see it in terms of how people are responding to them racially. So let's talk about white supremacy, hoodoo occultism. Let's talk about white supremacy and racism, and particularly in the context of today. It's already being suggested by our media that the lower the income, the further removed from the city, from the source, if you will, people are dying. People are getting sick. People are not having access to the resources that they need. Greetings, One Wapani. One Wapani, that's my baby sister, y'all. One Wapani. Have I noticed that during this virus, a level of racism has touched me that wasn't there before? Yes. Normally, welcoming people are now giving me a wider girth than a white person right next to me. I absolutely see that. I absolutely get that. I know just in Treme, just in the gentrifying of Treme. People are much more concerned about the cat, the dog, the possum, than they are about humanity. That doesn't mean that there aren't some black people that get in on the conversation, that get in on these sites, that aren't a part, if you will, of that look of diversity. But let's be clear, many of you, black, brown, red, are also carrying the seed of white supremacy in terms of how you treat and respond to the next person of color. I experience racism every day from black people who cannot, will not, choose not to understand a person of color who is knowing themselves, growing in knowledge about themselves, who chooses a more ethnic demonstration. The suit and tie would be acceptable. You know, I could still be the suit and tie sissy, going to the church, playing your gospel music, keeping your prosperity ministries going, and that would be acceptable to many of you. That would be acceptable. I remember when I began dreading my hair 30 years ago. Man, you talk about overt racism, Wapani. You talk about people's opinions about coming to the surface. And so I've noticed today, even on Nextdoor, I can't post positive affirmations. I can't say peace and blessings. That is ignored. That is not responded to. And I see the same thing here on YouTube. People who listen every day, but never click like, never become a follower of your show, never help to show some outward demonstration that they even support or acknowledge your humanity. So the racism that we didn't see before is absolutely coming to the surface. People are counting those ventilators. People are counting lives. And those who are connected, those who have resources, those who are closest to the source are absolutely looking out for themselves first. For themselves first. The aggression that I see displayed in social media today, in response to just the most basic thing, the most innocent thing, speaks to this problem, this virus, this infection that exists just beneath the surface in our country that we still, even in 2020, refuse to get real about, refuse to have a real conversation about, refuse to really speak to. Kiona, beloved, and my caller at 305, your mic is open. So if you have something to say, please jump in. If you have a question, please jump in. Also, my live chat, type your questions and comments as my sister Rapani has done in all capital letters so that I can see it and speak to it here on air.
But I'm also reminded when I post things on social media and I don't get support, then I look through my feed for Kiana, and I look through my feed, and I see the very thing that I posted is reposted by somebody that follows me but didn't even like my post, but they reposted it and they get 100 likes.
Yes.
I'm like, well, why not support? You know, why? But then I remember it was a scripture. It was in Proverbs, and it was from wisdom. And wisdom was frustrated. And wisdom said that I tried to tell you, I tried to warn you, and you didn't listen. But now that you need my help, now that everything is turned upside down, basically to paraphrase it, now you're calling it to me, and I will not answer to you. And I will hear you, and I will not answer to you. As a matter of fact, wisdom said it was going to last because you didn't listen. You didn't take heed. You didn't support. You didn't take a stand. You supported in hiding.
I think.
And right now, I appreciate this moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's.
I appreciate this moment.
I do too, beloved. I certainly do. I appreciate this moment. I appreciate this time, space. I appreciate this season that we are in right now. Because if you are of the right mindset, yes, absolutely, beloved. If you're of the right mindset, you're going to do what's necessary to grow, to develop, to protect your future.
I think that's 305 area code because that's not me. I apologize because I had my own talk show before, so I know what it's like. And if they can mute their background because they're having a sidebar conversation and it's interfering with the broadcast because this is a live recording.
I got it. I got it. I got it. Yeah. Growing our own food, having the availability of our own resources, Wapani, absolutely is something that if people have not taken it seriously before, you absolutely want to take it seriously now. And let me go back to the possum. You can't order ground beef on Walmart, Amazon.com, Whole Foods. You can't get online and get milk many days. You can't get online and get toilet paper many days. So the idea that, we might not be faced with the reality of eating possum, you know, um, again, I really believe that it was an opportunity for that hidden, tucked away, reserved racism that my sister Wapani just referenced, for people to say shady things, to say things that are really truer to what they feel and believe all the time. And it's real easy to use the pressure of the moment, the activity of the day, to say, oh, well, everybody's having a hard time. The site even tried to suggest everybody was stir crazy, meaning me, that my post was about being stir crazy. No, my post was about the reality that you might have to eat possum. The reality is you might have to feed your children.
The reality is they kick them possums in the mouth and laying beside them every day. They're nasty, not us.
That came up in the group. That came up in the group. Another neighbor, and I'm being very polite because I'm not calling out anybody's username from next door, but I could. Another neighbor jumped in and said just that they had a possum, baby possums, and that it was cute and that they're innocent and that they owe us no harm. Now, mind you, they're still on that PETA thing. And see, I have no beef with PETA. Just don't have a beef with me. If you choose to be vegan, if you choose to be vegetarian, if you choose to have a particular platform, a particular position about animals, that's your business. But I'm talking about eating animals, and particularly in the context of a disaster. Let's be clear, I don't eat possum. I've probably eaten possum one time in my life, and I was probably a child or a teenager, and someone in the family would have cooked it. So possum ain't on my top list of things to want to chow down on. But if we're in a position where Walmart trucks ain't rolling, the grocery stores ain't open, there's no availability of food, yeah, why not have that discussion? Me and Tony Val had that discussion the summer of Hurricane Katrina. And we talked about, what if this storm that's coming, this predated Katrina, what if this storm that's coming, yes, Hoodoo occultism, call in. You don't have to ask, please call in. What if this storm comes through?
Can't be kept. If you get hungry enough, you might be on the menu.
Right. You're going to eat what's available. You're going, that's right. You're going to eat what's available. Area code 305, your hand is raised. Did you have a question or comment? Area code 305? Okay. Hoodoo occultism, just call in. I don't see your number. So just call in if you have a question or a comment. Yes, Kiona, if we're in a desperate time, if we're under desperate measures, if toilet paper ain't available right now, what do you all think is going to happen if this gets worse? And your government keeps trying to, in the way that they do, suggest that we haven't seen the hardest of the 2 weeks yet. We haven't seen the hardest of this yet. So the possibility that people are going to be thirsty and hungry and desperate is very real. It's very real. What does it require? A zombie apocalypse? Does it require bodies being on the street? Well, the reality is we already there. We already there.
No, they're waiting on the rapture.
Yeah, we don't
They're
have
waiting on
bodies
the rapture.
literally on the street, but you already got trailers, 18 wheelers that they're now calling into these facilities just to stack the bodies up in, Kiana. So the bodies are already on the street. You all just don't see. You all just don't hear. In your mind, this is another Noah and a flood prophecy, and your eyes roll up in your head, and you just don't get it. You all aren't paying attention to the fact that people are dying of this. And the world that we exist in, or thought we exist in, no longer exists. That world no longer exists. So the reality that we might hit very hard times is very real. My sister said now is the time to learn how to grow your own food, even in small places.
And Wakami has been saying that even before this.
Yes, for years.
So people didn't want to listen. They want to hear about growing it. They want to hear about organic, growing your own food. If that's the true organic right there.
You can put some vegetable plants in a window, in an apartment, and grow your own food. People have to begin to think long
I gotta say
term.
one more thing, and I'm gonna jump in the shower.
Go ahead,
I
beloved.
gotta say this one more thing, and they want to say, and I'm so sorry because that came off the drill, but I gotta say this. They want to talk about possums and animal rights. It's not in our diet to eat meat anyway. They introduced that to us. That's why you have diabetes and hypertension, and we look like we're 20 and 30 years younger than what we are, but we're the sickest people walking this earth because we're not eating our true diet.
Yeah.
Our ancestors didn't come here cutting the heads off of chickens to eat them and fry them. We had to do that for survival. So call a thing a thing.
Yes.
This is their world.
Yes.
We just help build it.
And I mentioned that in the next door chat that there was a time that we wouldn't have had a choice but to eat coon and possum. And the very people who are threatening PETA, had a hand in creating the environment in which we had to do so. And so then they thought they could determine what we ate. And now they think they can determine what we eat. So some of you vegans and vegetarians think you are sort of a totalitarian, communistic environment. And so you can determine what everybody eats. Well, people have a right to determine what they can eat. And whether I want to eat meat or not, choose to eat meat or not, is my right. It's my business. But the context of the conversation was about distress, was about us not having availability of food and resources, and the reality that happening for us right here, right now. It's an opportunity to be shady and throw side marks and cast stones. One of the respondents spoke about, well, if you're desperate enough to eat a possum, why not go to the food pantry? Why not get a job? And even in that, it was implied that somehow people who need the food pantry, don't have a job, which you all know I have a job, clearly, or are somehow crazy, And neither is true, not having a job or being desperate for food. I'm not desperate for food. The conversation was about the reality of the day and where we might be headed, where we might be going. If we don't wake up to this and stay our asses home and stay out the streets and the stores and all this other stuff that people are trying to do right now in the midst of this calamity. Callers, please, you got me at 845-277-9143, 845-277-9143. When you're ready with your question, comment, or request, do press the number 1 on your telephone keypad. I will be more than happy to unmute your mic and bring you into the conversation. If you've already spoken and I've already unmuted your mic is open, so you can always mute. You are not hearing half of what I'm saying while the buffering is happening.
So therefore, once we realize this thing called currency and how to move it around and what
Said currency because we have a warped sense of value and what value is. Value is not just the dollar. In fact, if you understand value, it's not just your paper money, it's not just your credit card, which is another illusion, if you will, of value, your credit card. We have to value our intellectual property. We have to value our artistic skills. We have to value other things that also carry weight and produce resources and revenues for us in this culture. This culture is about capitalism. You said, Keone, you said entrepreneurship, but that's capitalism. Money before all things, making the sale before anything, making a profit even over humanity. That's the world that we exist in. But the idea of value being just about money is where lower income and lesser educated people are falling short. We've got to value our time. We've got to value our resources. We've got to value our skills and our ability. We've got to value our money. I know me as an adult, I first heard the phraseology in intellectual property probably around 2005, 2006. That concept was new to me, as it is to many people. What we say is intellectual property, what we write, intellectual property, and then how we protect that. Some of you are not protecting your intellectual property. I've had to learn all these lessons as a self-employed person, as a person in the business of ministry and religion and spirituality. I had to learn all that the hard way. I had to learn it from other people. I had to learn it here online. I had to research it. I had to have people explain it to me. I had to watch videos that went into detail about what it is and how that works. I know people personally who hold on to the dollar, only shop retail, resale, what's on sale, what's free, what's been given away, and still never have any money, still never manage to save a dollar or two, never manage to move beyond our predicament. That was showcased to some degree in the TV series Good Times. So our whole idea about what money is, time is money. Everything that has a value has some kind of exchange rate, exchange value attached to it. And we, particularly in our community, don't seem to always have that clarity. Area code 314, who's calling and where are you calling from?
This is Wapami.
Hey, girlfriend, what's going
Can you
on?
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, you were buffering, so I wanted to get in on the conversation. You were talking about trademarking your intellectual property, and I remember you telling me specifically that hashtag Wapani, that's my name, it's my legal name, but if I don't trademark it, someone can steal it from right up under me, and then now I have to ask permission or pay someone else just to use my name.
And that name is everywhere. I Google Wapani infrequently. It's everywhere. Even other
Yeah,
countries.
so it is, we saying?
I said even in other countries.
Yes. So while you were saying about the intellectual property and gaining ownership of that, we really have to put value on our thoughts and what we say, how we articulate that, and place a value on that, because it even goes deeper than just the trademark. If we don't start subscribing some type of value to what we say, what we write, what we put out there in the ether, then we have no real motivation to curtail what we say and how we say it. It's just so much deeper on a metaphysical level than just the financial backing of that. It's even further than that. I know you get what I'm saying.
I do. In my past life, I was a vendor. And so I crocheted kufis and dreadlock crowns and crocheted crystal bags, and the like, dipped incense, bottled body oil, and at that time, I was robbing Peter to pay Paul. I was making it from check to check. And I did not value money and resources in the same way that I do today. It was always a struggle to keep enough product to sell. And some of you are not here to sell product. Some of you are here to sell a service or your knowledge or your awareness about something or your ability to describe or to speak to something. And so slowly I still have incense, I still have oil, I still could be retailing that if I chose to do so. But I found out over time through experience that my knowledge, intellectual property, was of greater value. People really wanted to know what I thought, how I created that product, how I got to that place. People really wanted to know my story. And so for me, going back to 2005, the year that I say that I first really came out online. I had an email address before 2005, but I never used MySpace or any of the stuff that was happening online back then. I didn't even have a computer back then. So I count 2005 and Hurricane Katrina as my first coming out, buying a computer, being online, then becoming knowledgeable about this virtual world that we now are sort of inseparable from by way of our devices. And so the idea of intellectual property, the value of your knowledge, the value of what you know, the value of your ability to teach something, to share something, to create something cannot be overstated. And particularly now, as we move deeper into 2020, really deeper into this decade, we almost forgot we're starting a new decade. We're starting a new century, and we're starting it with this calamity. We're starting it with this virus. And another way to look at it, separate from the virus, is we're starting anew. It's a new world. So we all have to do things differently, shop differently, be social differently, at least for right now. And any notion that we might have, like Rob Stone has suggested in the chat, that this is going to be done in 2 weeks or 30 days is just ridiculous. Ridiculous. It's going to take at least 90 days for them to really arrest this globally and get us back to a place where we can sort of walk around again without any sense of what's out there. And of course, there's always the next pandemic, Ebola or whatever that might be. But it's going to take us at least 90 days, Rapani. At least.
Yes. Yes. You were saying that this is a new time anew. And I don't verbalize how I feel about the coronavirus and what it has done because my thoughts aren't very popular. But I always see something positive within the negative. And if people would just hold on to that vibration right now, this is a great time of rebirth, a great time of asserting creativity. What are you putting out there now that that will remake you? Everything is being forced on you to remake you right now. Staying at home, getting a better understanding of your family members, cleaning up those relationships, So I look at all those things behind the virus and not necessarily the devastation of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do as well. It's a spirit time. God has us on timeout so that we
Yes.
can grow spiritually, individually, but of course collectively. That this will ultimately show up at the collective level in how we act and how we move around in society. Just think, could we really be giving up handshaking? Could we really, which is a habit I never really liked anyway, um, grabbing folks' hands and particularly strange folks' hands. Um, that's always been sort of a dirty habit in our culture. But could we really now be faced with readdressing how we greet, how we connect, how we interact with one another? And it's absolutely yes. We're already there. But my dream, my vision is that we absolutely do come out of this anew. We absolutely do have an opportunity now for people to take this energy and transform it into something that's profitable, that's powerful, that's healing, that's beneficial to ourselves, but also to society. I've been saying for the last few days that people are writing books right now that are going to make them rich. People are preparing stories right now within themselves that are going to make them well renowned, world renowned, in 90 days, in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. So this is the time.
Brother.
This is the time to feed spirit. This is the time to play in the dirt, to play in the clay, to play in chalk, to play with paint, to play with needle and thread, to crochet, to build, if you will, and of course, garden. This is the time to build your garden, plant your garden. If you are stuck at home, many of us are stay at home. Um, Work in your garden, weed your garden, water your garden, order some plants, prepare for the future. And I like, Wapani, how you said, prepare for longevity, prepare for the long term. Keon, I see you
Yes,
still with me.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Your mic is
I'm
still.
still here. I got turned up. I'm here. I was just listening. You probably never called in, so I wanted to, be courteous and give her the floor. I didn't want to be overbearing. But I'm just listening, and it's good information, and I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate to see the growth. I'm passionate to see that everything, because I believe there's always a truth in a life, and the
Mhm.
magical book that we were raised on. I'm seeing some of it come to pass because it was written,
Mhm.
and,
Mhm.
and I'm seeing that rapture doesn't exist, that we're looking at it. So it's not going to be some beam us up Scotty moment. This is it right here. This is the end time.
I even
And we're
think
winning. Everybody that's awake, everybody's in tune, we're winning.
that's right. I even believe it's a renewing of the mind that can happen in a twinkling of an eye. It's a renewing of consciousness and spirit, whether you call it the Holy Spirit or some absolute universal spirit, has the ability to download information, literally download information that can change your view about yourself and your world instantly, within a moment. I've woken up from dreams. I have woken up from meditative states with a whole new understanding about certain things that I had looked at, had read, had studied many times before, only to have that twinkling of an eye revelation. Some people even suggest that twinkling of an eye might be some sort of alien intervention, and that the mothership returns, if you will, and they rescue us, from the ugliness of humanity. To some degree, I don't know if many of you know this, but Farrakhan teaches that. At least he once did. Would talk about the mothership uh, coming and this advanced extraterrestrial humanoid populace that would come and rescue a segment of society that have renewed themselves for advancement, to another level. So it's many ways to look at, the stories in that magical book, and figure out where the truth begins and the metaphor ends, where the symbolism begins, and just the most basic common messages begin. I like to look at the Bible in that way as well, Kiana. But I also entertain the whole alien theorist concepts. I like the documentaries. I believe my sister Wapani watches them also. I like a lot of the content
Yeah.
within those documentaries, because they speak to so many things, not just quote unquote the aliens, if you will, but our mind and the forming of our mind, or the forming of humanity, and how that is influenced by, of course, humanity itself, but then all these other mysterious forces, whether it be God or alien intervention, or nature. It's just really interesting programming to watch and digest. And I invite you during this time, if you haven't and you're unfamiliar, get your Hulu up or your Netflix up. I'm not sure exactly which channel Alien, the alien-based theorist programming comes on. Sometimes it's Discovery. Sometimes
Ancient Aliens. It comes on Hulu.
Yeah,
Ancient Aliens.
Ancient Alien. But I was trying to recall the actual network. I think sometimes it's on History Channel. Sometimes it's on Discovery Channel. They kind of bounce around a little bit, but
History.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm I like the idea that
But I want to thank our spirit guides and ancestors for being in this moment with us and for protecting us and guiding us, and for all of the spirits that chose to leave this moment so that we can still stay here and serve humanity. And I was just reminded as you were speaking about the mark of the beast, where we will be under a one world government. This is happening right now.
yes,
So they're running, buying toilet paper and all of that, and that's gonna go bad after a while. The food, the milk, everything has an expiration date. So I will just repeat what Wapani said about growing your own, because you're gonna need to. Because if you don't get that mark of the beast, your money, your credit cards, none of that's gonna matter if you don't know how to grow your own crop.
and how do we know we don't
You're not
already
gonna
have the
find
mark?
out.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Wapani.
We already have it, but they're putting it in text.
Yeah.
They're saying because we're coming under a one world government right before our eyes.
If you have a Social Security number,
Because it's not.
yeah, if you have a Social Security number, you already got the mark. If you have a credit card, you already got the mark. And I have personally in my personal life been a bill collector. I used to work for CCC, collection agency. You already got the mark. You're already in the system. You're already traceable in so many various locations that most of us can't even handle it. And that's why some people fear, their privacy rights are being violated. They're looking at me through my computer. They're tracking me through my phone and my device. We're absolutely living in that time, in that space. Rob Stone, I see your comment, beware the alien. And I'm open to that discussion as well. There are segments of our conscious community that not only fear alien intervention might be a negative thing moving forward, but sort of talk about this reptilian presence, if you will. I believe, and sort of foster that belief by some of the information that I've gotten from this alien. What's it called again, Wapani?
Ancient aliens.
Ancient aliens, yes.
Because I agree with Tiana.
Yeah, this ancient alien thing. I think that if indeed there has been some alien intervention, Rob Stone, that it has everything to do with who we are today as humans. How do we evolve from our animal selves into our human selves so quickly, without very little signs, without very little footprint? We're still looking for the quote unquote missing link. How does that happen? So it's not very hard, Rob, to imagine some sort of higher consciousness, whether it be God, whether it be aliens, some kind of higher consciousness getting involved in our world in order to create a place where humanity would evolve, heaven forbid, to where we are today. Now, I'm sure the negatives weren't predicted in sort of pushing us from our ape nature into our human nature. But the idea that we're not, you know, living in caves, and even that's challengeable because some say, you know, cave dwelling existed in the northern hemispheres. Others say that the humanoid, science says that the humanoid was birthed and was created out of the belly of Africa. I also believe the Hopi stories that the world has been destroyed, created, and recreated at least 4 times. So I'm also open to the idea that we went underground in terms of the cave stories, that we had to find a place to dwell and exist that was not harmed or tampered with, you know, by the environment of that day in order for humanity to survive on and to be where it is now. And so it's not very hard for me, Rob, to envision aliens being involved in that process.
Can I interject?
Please.
Okay. Kiana was mentioning about, uh, never forget the ancestors, our spirit. Um, Everything points to a vibration. It's all about that higher vibration. So if it is, say, alien intervention, well, then they're on a certain vibration to reach us telepathically. You know, the saying is they speak telepathically. You have to be on a higher vibration.
Mm-hmm.
The spirit, God, the ancestors, they're all on a higher vibration. So we have to get to the point where we raise our vibration to even hear them. Once we can hear them, we can respond accordingly in this day and time.
Now, Wapani, I agree with that. But I also agree with Rob Stone, especially after I heard how you just sort of laid that out. Some of the alien theorists suggest that we're sort of too optimistic about the present and future alien intervention. And that there may also, Rob and Wapani, be more than one race or more than one type of alien life form that's trying to interfere with us. And some might be trying to help us, to evolve, trying to warn us, trying to protect us from certain things. But there absolutely, Rob Stone, might be aliens that are trouble, that are here to harm, that are not trying to help us to evolve or move forward in some degree. Even as a child, I often wondered if the fallen angels and then this disgruntled set of aliens might have some relationship. You know, in the Bible, the fallen angels are described as, you know, going against God, having the power of the angelic host, but then under the leadership of Lucifer, um, develop an ego, for lack of better words. And so now they feel some kind of way about humanity. According to the biblical, Judaic, and Quranic stories, that the angelic host may feel some kind of way about God breathing spirit and divinity into humans. The Bible even goes as far as to say Lucifer made a comment to the effect of, you know, I'll never acknowledge the humans. I'll never bow down and worship a human. I'll never acknowledge the God in you, or the God that he has placed, it has placed inside humanity. So could that be, Rob, the disgruntled angelic host, this disgruntled alien nation who has a problem with humanity being what it is, who has a problem with humanity utilizing its skills and its knowledge and its powers in the way that we often do right now, which is not very good. We have the ability right now to destroy all humanity several times over, whether it's with a disease, consciously, whether it's with a bomb, nuclear power, atomic power. We have the ability to harm ourselves several times over. And I compared that to spirit power. Some of you are not mature enough to handle that kind of Endora, Bewitch, Samantha type power because you're too much in your feelings. You would desecrate all your enemies. You would desecrate anyone who's ever done you harm. You would kill anyone who looked at you sideways. You would vaporize the other woman, the other man. We're just not as humanity as a whole, just not that mature. So I also can see God, the goddess, or some sort of alien intervention trying to sort of push and pull at humanity just to keep us from harming ourselves, just to keep from wiping our own selves off the planet. Area code 318. I am opening your mic. Greetings. Please tell us who you are and where you're calling from. Area code 318. Area code 318. Your hand is raised. You pressed the number 1, so I assume you have a comment or a question.
Hello.
Yes, greetings.
This Voodoo occultism. How you doing today?
All is a blessing, beloved. Thank you so much for calling in and being a part of the show.
On the white supremacy, like my teacher, Dr. Africa, spoke about in this lecture, these people, I mean, the things that you're going through is on the next door. If, like them, it's no surprise. These people are the same people who actually knock the nose off the sink, poisoning people with syphilis, tear down Black Wall Street for no reason, put you in slavery for 400 years. I mean, these people have lost their minds. It's like they have lost their mind. I mean, and I'm tired of it. You know what I mean? And it's hard for me to live with every day, knowing that we can't live the potential that we want to because we have a very big obstacle in our way.
Can I respond? Can I respond? Because you're saying a lot, and if you force me to hold it into my memory, I'm going to forget each piece of what you just said that I want to respond to. So I'm going to start in reverse and then work my way back to the beginning of what you said. We absolutely have an opportunity to adjust, to change our reality, both black and white. Black people have an opportunity to better themselves, to educate themselves, to protest and reject white supremacy in the system as it is, but so too do white people also have the opportunity to protest, to educate themselves, to act in a way that alleviates the problem, that addresses, white supremacy, racism, the toxic residue of that and how it now shows up. I don't know if you heard me say before you called in a little bit early in the show that in addressing it, we first got to address ourselves. No matter what your color is, no matter what your ethnicity is of this system itself. And you hear me say this system, white supremacy, as opposed to what I heard you say, these people, because it's hard to pinpoint who these people are. I hear it said that, well, black people can't be racist because we don't control power, or we don't own anything, or we don't, have the ability to block other ethnic groups from progressing. Well, that's not entirely true. And we absolutely have the ability to block ourselves and each other from progressing. And that's why I say we have to confront first the white supremacy, the racism in our own behavior. And so the response to white supremacy is not therefore for us to be racist or for us to then take on a supremacist position, but for us to address that organically and honestly, how it shows up for us and in us, because it shows up differently for everybody. It don't quite show up the same for my Creole friend who grew up a little bit privileged, out in the rural area of Louisiana, and didn't necessarily have to deal with what we deal with in the city, or in the county, or in the bayou, or in the barrio. So first we have to look at our own behavior, our own activity. The second thing is, beloved, hoodoo occultism. I described it as a demon. I described it as a jinn. I described it as the curse. If there is a curse, a ham, that is the curse. The spirit, the power, the demon that fuels racism. It's taught, it's passed down, it's reinforced through symbolism, through archaeology, through history, through media, at every level. But it's elusive. It's not always Archie Bunker pointing his finger in your face, calling you nigger or boy. Particularly today in 2020, it's much more subtle. And so you might have black and white and Asian and Hispanic together in a Walmart or in a particular industry or in a particular office space. But then that racism, that prejudice, that bias that's been ingrained in us at the very seed level from the time you come out the womb, that then is when that shows up. And it shows up in a hidden, shady, but very few people come out and speak their truth, which is another thing I like to point out about Next Door. I also see it not only as hateful, biased, prejudiced, gossipy, as a site, but I also find it to be a site for people who otherwise feel they don't have a voice, don't have a platform, cannot, will not call you nigger to your face in public, but will get behind the sort of illusion of anonymity behind their computer screen, and then will say all kind of shady, hateful, negative stuff. So that's the kind of racism I'm trying to confront right now. Am I called nigger every day? No. But it's that idea that I'm somehow less than, not as important than. I walk up to the checkout counter, and this happens to me a lot. They don't see me. They don't see me at all. And I stand there quietly. Don't say a word, my hand, and they'll help the person behind me, two people behind me, the next person that walks up in front of me. And I catch myself saying rather infrequently, am I invisible? Am I a piece of glass? Because people look at this, not just the blackness of my skin, but this. I'm not in Western clothing. I'm not because some of you, feel like, well, racism is a problem, but it don't really show up that much in my life. And then I start looking at, what do you look like? What do you do? What is your lifestyle? How do you carry yourself? So that population that's mimicking and mirroring the sitcom and the soap opera and the so-called American dream. Once upon a time, everybody had a cable box if you were American. Everybody has a color TV if you were, that kind of thing. So when I started dreading my hair and dressing differently, that's when my belief system became a problem for other people. As long as I was wearing fashionable Western clothing, nobody cared about what my belief was. And the assumption was that I believed like everybody else, that I was just like you, hoodoo occultism, that I was just like any other black man. And I noticed that when I dreaded my hair, started wrapping my hair, started wearing African clothes, even the police don't treat me like regular black folks. And that might be to my benefit. You know, I come off like a foreigner to them, so I'm not going to be racially profiled in some instances the black guy with the saggy pants and the baseball cap might be looked at. They then look at me differently. And there have been cases where that has worked to my advantage. It didn't mean that I wasn't aware how racist it was, how prejudiced that it was. And when given the opportunity, I would speak to it. You know, don't assume my difference because I got an accent. Don't assume my difference because I dress differently. Don't assume that the Muslim, you, you know, or the what other Westerners, you know, are doing. Forgive the interruption. Someone's always trying to call while we're live on air. So some of you didn't hear clearly what I just said. But the idea that we prejudice people based on what they look like. Um, Wapani, are you with me? I don't know how much of your story you want to share live on air, but yeah, I know for a fact that Wapani is treated one way in certain instances, and then her husband, you know, who is white, is treated differently. And then the knowledge of that, you know, the husband once being a trucker, and then they find out that, oh, well, you got a black wife, the behavior would be different. Am I right, Wapani?
Yeah, he had been on a towboat for 3.5 years before we got together. And when I married him and moved down to Mississippi, I took him to work one day, and they asked who I was, and they said his wife. Well, he got the nigger jokes around him all day. They made him pull a 120-pound tow by himself, ruptured a disc, wrote him up because he wouldn't work after that. We sued him, we won.
So it's here. Hoodoo occultism. It's
But
alive.
yet we want to claim that we got Indian in our family, but it was because they was back in the plant in backyard on the plantation field playing with our ancestors. But then in public they want to play with us. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah. Now, when I did my DNA, which is another
There
reason
ain't Indian.
I
There ain't no Indian in our family. It's because they were touching our ancestors.
in most of us, yes. Now there are some, even we have something like 2% indigenous American in our tests. And let me be clear, indigenous American don't always mean Native American. You know, the map on Ancestry.com covers the farthest north in North America to the farthest south of the tip of South America when they describe indigenous American. Now, here recently, in the most recent update, because these DNA tests get updated every 30 days, every 60 days, every 90 days, when they get more copies in, they've now refined the map, Kiona, to Mexico and a region of southwestern America. So I may very well be Hopi or Naztec or Natchez or some other indigenous
I'd like to speak
population.
on that.
Go ahead, beloved.
I'd like to speak on that. Kiona had brought up about, we all think we're Native American, have it in our background. There's some confusion with that as well. My husband he was blonde hair, blue eyes, as white as they get. His grandfather was a black man that his father gave to the Sioux Nation so he wouldn't get sold into slavery. So they changed his name, and he became Yohanwa or something like that. I can't remember his name, but we got the records. Creek. He was given to the Florida Creek Nation at the time, and people think they have Native American, but it actually can be just white people have black and still be racist.
That's right. That's right. If I had my way,
Being prejudiced and racist against Otani's husband, and he probably has more African in him than the person who actually looks African.
Exactly.
that's absolutely the
Because
case.
we're what? Was it
We're like 85%.
Scandinavian?
Yeah, we're like 85% African, and the remaining portion is Scandinavian, Western European. So hoodoo occultism, I keep going back to we got to look at ourselves. I know some black people who are terrified of Ancestry.com and 23andMe because they don't want to know how much white they have in their family. They don't really want to know how much Native American is in their family. They don't really want to know how much of a mix that we are. And the reality is that we're all mixed. To some degree, every human has some other ethnic group, has some other admixture, unless your family and your generations have been absolutely isolated for centuries. So there's going to be sort of that admix. If I had my way, everybody in America who got a Social Security number would have access to a DNA test. I think it would help to
Every time you say that about the ancestry, I hear that there's power in the blood. Every time you mention about the ancestry, I hear that there's power in the blood. And the blood speaks. But you won't know, you won't be able to hear it if you don't know where it's coming from. Because you may not know its language.
Mm-hmm. That's
A
right.
lot of our ancestors didn't speak English.
That's right. I said that yesterday on the
That's
show.
powerful, Keon.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
There's power in the blood. There's power in the blood is going to speak from wherever it is. You can burn the flesh all you want. You can put it in the urn. You can put it in the ground. You can put it wherever. But that blood is going to live forever. So the ancestry reports are powerful because you have to know that bloodline. That's where your power lies.
I hear you, Rob Stone. Rob Stone says, we appreciate your candid honesty, and particularly because, like me, you're using your real name. Rob Stone is saying that he understands that fear with the DNA test, the history, the lineage that might be attached to that. He was afraid to find out that he had slave owners in his bloodline. And Rob Stone, that's a fear even among black people, that they might find slave owners in their family, or might find that their West African ancestors sold them or sold their ancestor into slavery in the course of some war or some debt, that would have been incurred on the eastern side of the Atlantic. So that's a common and that's a natural fear. I also want to say you all are running out of time to call me now. I see I'm buffering a little bit on YouTube, so I'm going to say that again. You all are running out of time. If you want to call in, ask a question, comment, have a request, press the number 1, area code 832. I see you. Press the number 1 on your telephone keypad, and I'll open your mic. Area code 832, you had a question or comment?
I shouldn't be afraid of that.
Area code 832?
We had congressmen in our family.
Is that Keon or is that 832?
We had congressmen in our family. This is Kiana. I want to say this and now I'll mute myself out. So I'm trying to say something about Rock Stone. He shouldn't be afraid of that because even during slavery, we had our ancestors were congressmen. And so if he looks into it, he could actually look at his history and see where his people come from, and it will actually all make sense.
Mm-hmm. Area code 8.
Deter you.
Yes. Area code 832. Who's calling and where are you calling from?
Hi, greetings. Salutations. It's Tanja Bruner from Houston, Texas.
Listen, beloved, I never get. Hold on, beloved. I never get your first name. I need you to say that again.
Oh, Tanja.
Tanja. Okay, Tanja.
Yeah, Tonja.
Okay, greetings, beloved. Go ahead.
Yes, but I was just commenting on what the ladies were
were saying about every most Black people want to have some sort of Indian in their family. And it hit home for me because my mom, my whole life, like she would post pictures of my grandmother on YouTube, on Facebook of herself, and she would reference them as, you know, Indian princess, Indian queen, blah blah blah. And this is a grandmother that I've actually been quite estranged from because when my mother got pregnant with me, they like put her out the house. So I never got close to this grandmother, but I went out of my way to do so as of late. And I remember having a conversation with her, and she was saying, I said, well, Brittany, you know, Mom says that we're Indian, and she said, and I said, what's the name of, what was your mother's name? She said, Sally Jones. And then she goes, well, she wasn't Indian, she was Mexican. And I said, really? She said, yeah, she was full-blown Mexican. And it took me aback, like Kiana said, it's all going to make sense. Because from the moment that I can remember, I've loved everything that is synonymous with their culture. And I never could understand it because I'm Black. I love the food, I love the culture, I've studied it. My birthday is a Dia de los Muertos. I speak the language very well, and to be a non-Hispanic. And I didn't understand it until she said it and smacked me in the face. And I was like, what? Full-blown Mexican. And it's crazy that my mother is circulating this, because when I went back and told her, she said, oh, you know, your grandmother's on, she probably don't remember. How she gonna say she don't remember? But it just goes to show, like, the delusion or I can't remember his name says, the illusion of inclusion. You know what I'm saying? Where you feel like they're included, we don't know who we are, so we just want to kind of throw ourselves in any old batch and just say that's what it is. You know what I mean?
That's right. And I want to bring up a point, too, that, you know, when we think about enslaved Africans being brought to the Americas, and particularly North America, and when you examine it from an archaeological perspective, the largest number of slave graves, slave burial sites in North America is in Mexico. And when we talk about this story, when we tell our story, when we talk about enslavement, when we talk about the antebellum South, we rarely discuss Mexico in that at all, particularly in relationship to Black people. I remember when I lived in Los Angeles for a decade, back in the late 80s, early 90s, just trying to have that conversation with Mexicans was very difficult. Any notion that they were Black or had any connection to the Blacks, I would say 7 out of 10 times I got a negative response, about it. It's even very few Mexicans that understand their connection to Africans and African culture, and of course to that time period of slavery and enslavement. Even with the presence of the Olmec heads, which look extremely Black. I don't care who's asking. Yeah, they look extremely Black. So, I appreciate and I applaud, you and being aware of that in your family and being aware of that experience. And keep researching, keep looking, keep filling in the blanks.
I most definitely will. It just hurts because it's like, you're denied an entire facet of yourself. You're like, what? I could have been diving deep and researching this a long time ago, And so with Indians, I didn't feel that. It don't resonate in my soul. Feathers don't, anything synonymous with the Indian culture, even though it's beautiful, it doesn't resonate. Mm-hmm. And I could never understand it until I came to that realization. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And again, I invite you to call in at area code 845-277-9143, 845-277-9143. Blog Talk Radio is going to lock down the phone lines. And so anyone who's not already on the phone within the next few minutes will not be able to get on the phone. And then, of course, the remaining portion of the show will go into archive, and you can go back later and listen to the show in archive, but just not during live. I also invite my live YouTube listeners and participants to continue to type and copy your questions into the chat in all capital letters so that I can see them and respond to them appropriately. And of course, Kiona, our moderator, will help me to see, your questions or comments a little bit better. Miss Green, I do see your comment. I believe if aliens wanted to harm us, they would have done it already because they are far more advanced than us. And I believe and accept that to some degree. How I also consider the idea that they are looking forward, looking to the future, looking where we're headed. And so they might be attempting to sort of modify us in some way, which wouldn't require like wiping us off the map, but forcing us to change our direction, our history, our technology, our ways of looking at things, our way of looking at ourselves, if you will. So I believe there's absolute truth in what you're saying. That if they wanted to harm us, they could have, but we don't know that they haven't already. We don't know that they haven't implanted a gene, that opens up like Pandora's box at a particular point in history, at a particular time in history. That's one of the mysteries about COVID-19, its ability to sort of hide, and mutate, for 14 days, for 3 weeks, without the host having any real symptoms or limited symptoms. I'm seeing and hearing people who experience seasonal allergies who are confused right now about whether they are experiencing seasonal allergies or if Miss Rona, has somehow showed up, at their door. So we've got to be careful. We've got to be extra careful. We've got to be conscious, extra conscious. We've got to be spiritual, extra spiritual, and continue to literally be clean and wash our hands and wash your ass and do the necessary things to sort of protect our reality. But we've got to start doing the inner work. And that's why I believe we're being asked to sit down. We're being asked to be quiet. We're being asked to be patient. We're being asked to be loved, to be creative, to be still, to be safe, to be happy, to be mindful, prayerful, to be conscious, to be aware, to be loved, to be proactive, to be available right now, to be peace. And by all means, stay home. Just stay home and do the work. Do the inner work. Do the spiritual work right now in this moment while you have the time, while you have the opportunity, but while that window is open, while that vortex is open. Those that move into this will be blessed. Those that address what's happening right now will be blessed. Those that look at themselves right now will be blessed moving forward and will survive this calamity. All of my callers, your mics are still open. If you have a question, comment, or request, you may very well jump in right now and do so. I'm getting just a little bit of background noise.
I'm actually going to have to take my leave. I need to tend to my seedlings.
I appreciate you.
So,
and
thank you, sir.
All is a blessing.
Yes, thank you. All is a blessing. Peace.
If someone has a question or comment, please hit me now in the chat or live on the phone, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you. I'm going to take a momentary intermission. It's a blessing. All is a blessing, all is a blessing. Aboru, Aboye, Aboshishe, Ashe. All is a blessing. Alafia. Thank you so much for allowing me that momentary intermission to get some water and to move my packages around and, of course, to re-bleach my hands. We want to acknowledge the power of iron, the power of the machete, and the spirits and the forces that speak for today.
90 seconds.
We want to acknowledge the power of the crossbow and the divine hunter, the one whose arrows always make their target, always make their mark. We want to acknowledge the powers of fertility, the powers of hunting, the powers of our ability to harvest and to locate that in nature, which is
60 seconds.
healing, holistic, nurturing, nutrient providing. And so we give thanks and acknowledgement to the warriors. Beloved, you forgot Orisha Oko. You got 2 out of the 3 that I just described. Do you want to add Orisha Oko to that? Yes, yes, Bruna, yes, Orisha Oko. So we give thanks. Orisha Oko is about crop production, literally and figuratively. It is about reaping what we plant, reaping what we sow, birthing that which we've nurtured. And that's why I say
10 seconds.
don't nurture the negative. Don't nurture what you don't want. Don't nurture a reality that you don't want to see come to pass. Nurture that which is true. Nurture that which is wholesome. Nurture that which is within. And you'll always get the crop production. Orisha Oko sees to that. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. Rob Stone, let's see. What are you talking about? Are you still talking about the aliens and their interference with humanity? Yeah, I believe that to some degree that could absolutely be true. If we give other life forms in the universe human-like qualities, then we absolutely expect them to be catty, selfish, competitive, manipulative, much like we would accredit humanity. I've noticed that we transfer human qualities onto pets and animals and our stuff. So it's in the human psyche, the human mindset to apply human-like laws to everything in the universe, whether we know that to be the truth or not. But we can assume to some degree that if they are present, that they would absolutely be interfering in society, either to our help or to our demise. But I would find it very difficult to assume that they would not be interfering at all in some sort of way. Thank you so much for being with me for 2 hours. I most certainly appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time out of your day to be a part of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo, Secrets and Recipes. I appreciate you. I love you. I support you. I look forward to your emails and your requests at www.houseofthedivineprince.com. Please don't try to order a reading directly through my site. My site is not even set up that way. It gives a list of some of the things that I do and what the donation might be. But as I described or shared with you the other day, GoDaddy is having a problem. Some of you are aware of it. And certain functions in the site stopped working during the shutdown for Corona-19. So to fix it, they took that technology out of my services page and then just re-entered something that I had saved 5 years ago. So the information is not quite right. Some of the details are not quite right. So all I'm asking you to do is send me an email request. If you send me a private, personal email request, then I'm always going to take the time to explain, to go into detail. Keon and them will tell you how long and laborsome my emails can be, how much information and wording be in my emails, and you can then be clear about what it is that you seek, that you desire from me, that you might require my help and my assistance from, and I'll be glad to do that. Um, let's talk about voodoo. Let's talk about hoodoo, root work, conjure, obia. Let's talk about revolution and revival. Let's talk about white supremacy and racism. Let's talk about society now moving forward in a new way. We just can't see it with clarity right now, but we see the movement. We're feeling the movement. We're all in the process of feeling that momentum. We just don't know where we're headed with this. We just don't know where we're going with this. They're predicting 100,000, 200,000 people can die, young and old, good and bad, black and white, religious and spiritual, Afrocentric and not, conscious or not. People are going to die. Society will be changed. Our way of living, our way of loving, our way of doing things will continue to change, will continue to evolve. And I ask you to just be true, be calm, be centered, be truthful, be peace. Okay? Just be. And by all means, be alive. Be alive. On the other side of this, I want us to be alive. I want us to continue to have these conversations. I want to still be able to see Think Bruna and Rob Stone and Kiona and many others, Tasha. Oh, I just can't fathom the idea that there will be people that we are interacting with every day right now who will not be here in a month. In society, our lives will change. So this is the time to rise up to the occasion. This is the time to grab the deer or the bull, as they say, by the horns. This is the time for us to absolutely stand in our truth, stand in your consciousness, whatever that is. I'm not here to judge it. I'm not here to choose it for you. I'm just here to give you some clarity about how to walk that journey in confidence, in truth, without, always feeling the arrows of attack, always feeling the negative and toxic energy, of the jinn that interfere with us each and every day. Whether they be aliens, Rob Stone, or jinn, or demons, they're here. They're here. And we have the opportunity to explode them like atomic bombs. We have the opportunity to open up avenues of freedom and recourse for ourselves, but also for the generations that follow. I'm running out of words. I'm running out of time. You all seem to be running out of questions. Tamara Bragg. Is it Tamara or Tamara? I'm going to say Tamara unless you tell me it's Tamara. What are my thoughts on the Hex Happy Facebook Mambos misleading people? Oh, girl, you just trying to stir the pot. You know what my feelings are. It's chaos. It's madness. You first got the wannabe witches, who are now, charging for paid readings, charging for paid services, charging to do ritual and work and candle work on folk. But then you have that whole Facebook, social media element to it, where it's about competition, where it's about backbiting, where it's a lot about what I'm dealing with on Nextdoor. People who otherwise don't have a voice, who otherwise don't have visibility in the real world, in their life, but they can fake it, they can project it in social media, in Facebook. And In the 12-step program, many of you might not know what that is. AA, NA, CA, all of those type of programs. They say fake it until you make it. But what they mean is, if you're not positive, if you're not happy, fake happiness until it kicks in. Fake being positive until it kicks in. If you're not hopeful as you want to be, then you push yourself. That's what I mean when I say fake. Fake hopefulness until hopefulness really kicks in for you. That's what that saying really means. So if you want to be a witch, absolutely. If you want to be a psychic, if you want to be a Eonif, if you want to be a Babalao, absolutely you want to project that energy into the universe. But you can't avoid the homework. You can't avoid the training. You can't avoid the knowledge. You can't avoid the experience that comes with that. So that's my first response, Tamara Bragg, to the pure insanity that is these Facebook mambos. But then, because they're not mature spiritually, because they're still drinking Similac spiritually, now they're in their feelings. Now they're in their ego, and now the name calling and the backbiting and who is real and who ain't real, and which I find that real curious when someone who's totally not initiated, who comes out and says, I'm not initiated, I'm not really in this system, but this mambo ain't real, and that Hogan ain't real, and that voodoo priestess ain't real, and that voodoo practitioner, might be real, because his readings is on point, but I ain't got a whole lot else to say about him. Yeah, I've seen that conversation, Tamara Bragg. I've seen that energy, not just on Facebook, but it's everywhere. It's everywhere, and Africa, in particular, sits back and watches, and so they duplicate that to some degree, and they pop up in your DM. They pop up in your instant message. They pop up in your email. The ancestors got a message for you. You got something bad happening with you. That you need to send us money now for us to to fix. And they are responding to that fake hex happy mambo misleading energy that Tamara Bragg is referencing right now in the chat. And they draw so much darkness to themselves, beloved. So much darkness. The ones that do communicate with me, I can't tell you how sad, depressed, angry, miserable, repressed that they feel and are experiencing behind that internet show of mamboism. Sometimes I call it Orisha romance. They just in love with Orisha. They say they're in love with Orisha. But how can you then be in love with Orisha and not absorb and learn its culture? Not absorb and learn where it comes from, how it was born, how it's made, how to absolutely feed it, how to absolutely respond to it. So, yeah, it's a hot mess. I take it personally sometimes because it makes my job harder. I then have to reteach what I've just spent 2.5 hours teaching, what I've already spent 12 hours teaching. I then have to reteach it. I then have to re-say it. I then have to do the do-over, in terms of the information, just to get them out of the hole and just back to a place, that's healthy again. Africa is absolutely upsetting, think Bruner. Absolutely upsetting. They're thirsty to be Western. They're desperate to be capitalist. They're desperate to be, Londoners, Parisianers, Americans. And it's okay to travel abroad, get education, experience other people, other places, other things. But West Africa in particular is very, 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 very disappointing. Very disappointing. They're thirsty to be us, while at the same time they despise us. And not us as black people or us as Africans, but the cars, the availability of opportunity, the housing, the education. Most people around the world view America in two ways. We're at the top. We have everything. All Americans should be wealthy, should be rich, should have resources. And then the other half of what the rest of the world thinks about us is that we are dirty, carnal, debased, occupied with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and that we are the least moral and integritous on the planet. Those are the two ways that foreigners typically look at us. Yeah, and that we're lazy. But I kind of hit that when I talked about they see us having all these opportunities that we're not advancing in, that we're not grabbing onto, that we're not taking advantage of. They're often in denial of slave history from a West African perspective. I hear tell in I'm not going to say the country because I'm not sure which country it is, but there's a monument set up to some black folks, to some Africans, but this family made their wealth off of slave trading. And so even today, there's sort of this monument, this location to this particular family. So yeah, we got problems with the miseducation of the Negro. The miseducation of the African would have been a better term. And if he were alive to do a second rendition of that book, it would be the miseducation of the African, and then take the African perspective of how they have been whitewashed, how they have been injected with the virus of white supremacy and racism, even though it might be a black nation, quote unquote, Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, etc. But the activities, the actions, the behaviors, the motivations, the greed, the desire, leans towards what the colonizers taught them, gifted them, presented to them. So that's what we're dealing with today. There are groups that I find sometimes difficult to communicate with. They're good at asking for, they're good at begging for, they're good at the seduction. They all want to marry you, they all want to love you, all that kind of stuff, that, as a part of the fraud, as a part of the crime. But when I start getting into specific questions, what do your people there feel about homosexuality? What do your people there feel about blacks in America? What do your people there feel about Orisha or voodoos, or indigenous power and culture and tradition? And that's when the conversation changes up, particularly in Nigeria. Now understand, Nigeria is a heavily policed state. Even their internet, I believe, is being monitored. So I find that a lot of Nigerians, for instance, will not talk about homosexuality. Some of you believe, it's not African, so therefore an African would have something really negative and bad to say about it. But the reality is when I press them on the issue, they don't want to talk about it. Not because they've sided one way or the other, but the government is listening. The religious government is listening. And so that could affect how they live. Gays themselves I communicate with in social media. Baidu, WhatsApp, Skype. And some of them have revealed to me the truths of the political state in Nigeria, the truths of the economic state in Nigeria, along with this marauding culture of Arabs coming down, from the north and kidnapping young girls, for wives and for birthing babies, and disrupt their education, as well as the disruption of Nigerian culture in general. It's the push of that Islamic, that hateful Islamic. I'm losing my words right now. I'm trying to read and talk at the same time. I'm losing my words, but it's a push of that. I don't want to be accused of inciting racism or ethnic. So I'm trying to use the right word. I can't think of the word I'm trying to use. But you got these Muslims, Arabs. I don't care if they black Africans, they Arabs, pushing down into Africa, then affecting their culture, their government, their way of life, their way of doing things. It's not just the oil, it's not just the mineral composition, but the mindsets of our people who have now, think Bruner, embraced religion in a way that we African Americans have already been down that road. They're just now catching up to that. Now they're going to try and do what we've already done for the last 100 years, only to find out it didn't work for us. It's not going to work for them. Araya Farhan, beloved, I pray I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Araya Farhan asks, how can spiritualists congregate with the social distancing? I want to rejoice with other voodoo practitioners and followers, but Congo Square is closed. I like that question and comment on many levels. And beloved, I need to know who you are. Put your face picture into your YouTube so I can see who you are. Because I should know you. I'm not familiar with your name, but if you're a Congo Square participant, I should know you. The first thing is, I still do Congo Square. I do, by myself. Now, is it tricky? Yes. The park was locked because, the military was set up there. They're not set up there now. And so sometimes the odd gates are locked, if you know what I mean, around the back, around the sides. Sometimes they're open, but the driveway is almost always open. And so that's how I get in and out of the park if the side gates are closed. And I serve my ancestors. Now the next thing is, do it where you are. Do it from home. Drum if you want to. Sing if you want to. Pour and make libation if you want to. And let's share that in this space, or let's share that in a space where we can come together as a group. Now Kiona gifted me a site and some information yesterday, some technology that will help me to stream differently and sort of change the context of the show. I might eventually, there could come a day where I can see at least 4 of you or 6 of you, on the screen at a time, provided I'm able to understand and digest the system. There is streaming available even in YouTube Live, Kiona, and I don't understand that either. I find it hella confusing. So it's going to take me a few days to figure out, no StreamYard branding, unlimited streaming, logo, overlays, background, custom RTMP destinations. I don't even know what RTMP destinations are. Multi-screen, of course, multi-streaming, of course, 2 destinations. I may very well be able to broadcast here, Instagram, Facebook, all at the same time, if I'm understanding the information that beloved Kiona sent me yesterday. But it's going to take me some time to figure this out. It also costs a monthly subscription. So again, I'm very reliant on my godchildren, my clients, my initiates, my friends, my family, my supporters to send your offerings and your donations, so that I can do all these things and sort of keep things moving. I want to be on the Breakfast Club level. Why can't we be on the level of the Breakfast Club, except we're talking about spirituality and religion from an Afrocentric ATR perspective? Why can't we be that? I know why we can't, because there's too many people that are jockeying right now for my seat, for my throne. You too much worry about your own show, your own blog talk radio, your own YouTube, and you're literally doing what my sister Wapani posted, copying and pasting, taking stuff that I already done, I already said, I already broadcast, I already posted, and then reposting it for yourself. And still not getting the results, still not getting the traffic, still not getting the following. Some of you can't see past the illusion. Some of you don't know how I'm doing, what I'm doing on this end. I assure you it's not what you see. I assure you it's better than what you see. I assure you it's more fluid than what you see. And I assure you, you won't be able to sort of copy it, duplicate it, without building relationship with me. Build a relationship with me, I'll give it to you. Who's ever dealt with me? If Kalinda Laveau is honest, she'll tell you that I showed her, gave her everything. I allowed her into my PayPal. I allowed her into my psychic network sites so that she could see how I run them, how I set them up, how I organize them, how much money I was making. And she's not the only one. I've done it for some of you. I won't call your name, but I've done it for some of you. Only for you to stick with me for a month, 2 months, 90 days, and now you're trying to do readings. Now you're trying to be the goddess mother of all. God King, Hoodoo #1, you know, and it's so, oh my God, it's just insanity. Bruna, it's insanity. Aurora, it's insanity. It's insanity. And people are so vulnerable in social media to this. I see it in Instagram every day. And these people have 20,000 followers, 30,000 followers. And they're not giving you anything but air, whipped cream. It ain't even a piece of sweet potato pie underneath that whipped cream. It's just whipped cream and a paper plate and some air. And that's what you're getting. Because 2 weeks later, you're looking to fix your romance. You're looking to fix your finance. You're looking to remove the block. You're looking to remove the curse. You're looking to get out of this mess. So we know it's not working for you. We can see it. And many of you talk too much. You're talking about your problems. You're sharing your problems. You psychic witch right now, but then you're in MySpace or, some other network really telling who you are and what you're dealing with. You're contacting me and other readers to help you through, and those kind of emails, Kiona, they kill me. I'm goddess mother of all. I've been reading people and doing work and doing ritual, and now all of a sudden I need your help, and I need you to come in and verify what I know. I need you to come in and verify what the cards told me. It don't even work like you didn't even take pictures of the cards. You didn't even videotape the moment in its authentic, scenario for me to look at it. Because often these scenarios are not real. These are internal scenarios that people create, that people come with, and then they come at you with it, meaning me, as a practitioner, expecting me to legitimize it for them. Greetings, Imani Sankofa. Greetings, beloved. I can't remember when I virtually met Imani Sankofa. I want to say Imani been around since Yahoo 360, right? Imani, weren't you on Yahoo 360? But thank you so much for being here and participating. Yes, Kiona, and then they want $5 service. Then I'm broke and I paid so many readers. That's one of my pet peeves. Don't tell me that. Don't come at me like that. I spent thousands of dollars with so many readers and nobody could help me, or it was so temporary, and now I need you to help me for $5. Or for the promise that if you help me, I'll come back and hit you up. When most of y'all won't even leave me a comment and rating. And I'm not talking about those of you who contact me personally, though that has been a problem for the last week too. And let me note, Google is not working. They have a notice. We have a problem loading reviews because of the coronavirus. Now, what that means, I don't know. But my other 2 links don't have that kind of warning. My other 2 links don't have that kind of complication. So most people won't even comment and rate. But what I'm referring to right now in terms of comment and rating is my Psychic World site. And I can't tell you how many people, oh yeah, I promise at the end of this chat, I'm going to leave the comment and rating. And they don't. And they don't. And again, it goes back to racism and white supremacy. Look at Psychic World. I'm surrounded by pictures of white women. We don't know that they are all white women. We know that they are pictures of white women. Some of them are glossy, magazine quality. So we don't know who's really behind them. But what we do know is that they're utilizing that image for a reason. That is the accepted image. The fortune teller, the psychic reader, historically has been viewed as sort of this white woman with long, crazy hair. The fortune tellers, the gypsies. Remember Lucille Ball? Most often it's the female image of that practice, that science, that culture. So just look at me on Psychic World. Who's there? Who's not there? How many men of color are there and are representing in terms of their comments and ratings matching up to their traffic? See, I get a lot of traffic online. And some of you are in hiding. You don't want people to see your username. You don't want people to see your real name. But you'll hire for a reading. You'll hire for a service. And then those people don't comment. But then I have a whole nother group, black and white, who are carrying that seed of white supremacy. And so they're always going to go in and support the women and leave them a comment and rating. And if you're only charging $1, $2, that's real easy to do. You have 5 of your friends contact you at $1 and talk to you for 3 minutes, $3, and then leave a comment and a rating. That's why some of those profiles got 500, 1,000, ratings behind them. And Psychic World is relatively new. The average number is right about where my number is. You can easily go through almost every psychic on the entire site in 5 minutes. Just scroll, I think it's maybe 4 pages worth of psychics on Psychic World. I'm an island in that environment. I was an island on Keen. I was an island on Live Persons. And I eventually had to leave those 2 sites for the same. I noticed who's rotated to the top of the site and why and how often. A white woman with 3 stars out of 5 is going to be on the top of the page before me with 50 comments, 75 comments and ratings, but going to be at the top of the page higher than me. Now, if they're using an algorithm, that wouldn't be possible. Because every time you got a reading, a successful reading, that would move you up in the algorithm. Every time someone leaves you a comment and rating, that would move you up in the algorithm. I've actually had calls and refresh my page, and I'm at the bottom of the list of available readers who have their light on in the moment. I'm at the bottom of the list or near the bottom of the list. And when I load the first page, right now, you got one reader that's got 114 reviews, and her score is 4.6. You have another reader whose review has 45 reviews, and her stars are 4.8. And then you have another reader who's 533 reviews, very new to the site, by the way, and she has 4.9 reviews. And these 3 readers are sitting at the top of the site. Now, whether that's set up by an algorithm or by a human hand, that's questionable. That's shady, questionable. I'm 4th from the bottom right now. So the very last person who's live right now has 29 reviews. She's at 4.7. The next person has 165 reviews. She's at 4.9. I have 104 reviews. I'm at 4.8. And then right next to my left, young girl Sophia has 45 reviews. at 4.8. But we're all at the bottom of the list right now. And you tell me it's not a human hand. You tell me it's not, you know, an error in the algorithm. Because, you know, don't tell me it's an algorithm, because algorithms only pay attention to numbers. That's it. And I have great deal of traffic. I have way more than 104 clients who have visited me on this site. Some of you have visited me on Psychic World and didn't leave me no comment and rating. And so that plays into white supremacy, the system, continuing to disenfranchise people of color, sometimes men, sometimes women, sometimes transgendered, but there are just too many shady, behind the scenes ways that we still keep this kind of hatred, this kind of prejudice, this kind of activity alive. Listen, I'm going to have to go soon. My beloved Merlene Kimball is looking for me. So I've got to respond to her in a reasonable amount of time. I'm looking at my chat. I'm looking for my capitalized questions, comments, and requests. Thank you so much, Keisha Smith. Thank you. Thank you, Think Bruner. Thank you, Julia Rose. I certainly do appreciate you. Keona, I love and appreciate all of your support and efforts to help me to sort of keep this moving forward. Yes, Tasha's Touch. Most of these sites now have way too many rules of what we can and cannot do in a reading. Absolutely, absolutely. And now they want you to lie. Some of the wording now is, you know, we want to provide, you know, feel good, positive reinforcement. And absolutely, a healer wants to do that. But a healer, a practitioner, has to also operate in truth. Rob Stone, medicine man, has also got to tell the truth. You know, and just like you would expect your doctor to tell, not to pull your leg, as they say, but to tell the truth, to speak the truth. But yes, I've noticed that too. Some of these sites even now are asking for free readings and services just to sort of qualify you. So now you got somebody random calling you for free service, which goes against the rules of Voodoo. You know, E5, there has to be an exchange. So that's a complication for me. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy. But I do know, keeping it positive, that it's changing. Everything is changing right now. And some of these sites won't survive Corona. Many of these businesses won't survive Corona. Many of these readers won't survive Corona. Many of these wannabe witches and practitioners will not survive Corona. Literally or figuratively, won't survive Corona. And so everybody's in a position of transition right now. Everyone's in a position of change. Please forgive me. I'm going to have to move forward. Let me check here. 832, thank you so much for remaining on the line with me. Tanya Bruner, I appreciate you. And all the other callers who are online right now but do not have your hand raised or didn't say anything, I most certainly do appreciate your listenership and your participation in the show. I am going to end reminding you that all is truly and indeed a blessing. I'm going to play a little bit of music, Tanya Bruner, until Blog Talk Radio cuts me off, and those who are on my phone line. But I'm going to move forward now until next time, reminding you that all is truly and indeed a blessing if you can just see beyond the veils. I want to play Grigri Suit. Grigri Suit by Ben E. Hunter. Ben E. Hunter is a local musician, historian, tour guide right here in Treme. And he wrote and produced, sang, played the guitar, performed this song, Grigri Suit. You know, that magical book that many of you still read from talks about being girded, suited up, wearing your suit of armor and protection, if you will. And so Grigri Suit is about being suited up, wearing your voodoo hoodoo armor in the midst of any battle, in the midst of any condition. So I'm going to move forward. All is a blessing. Odabo. I just realized, Tanja, I muted myself too early on Blog Talk Radio. Hot and steady. Don't care if Freddy's ready.
Gone free at that old cemetery. Down on Cleveland where she's buried. Build a fire on the bayou. When the black cat scratched at you. Under a full moon that is blue.
Chant the magic words, Kufaru.
A dash of cayenne
To the room.
Gonna put on my Greek
suit. Yeah. Hey, Orisha.
black top hat,
Iba Orisha.
black
Mojuba Orisha.
single rod that moves this through. I'm gonna get them bones out the graveyard for you. Can't see my eyes like she's do. A dash of cayenne
To the root.
Gonna put on
My Greek suit.